Ready.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for another edition of Know Your Enemy from Behind the Steel Curtain. My name is Michael Beck, your deputy editor. I'm joined as always by one Mr. Jeffrey Benedict. Jeffrey, how's your Christmas?
It was great. I had a great Christmas. I'm doing good. Steelers won, so yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy.
Oh, our guest, Gab Gowdy, super humongous online presence, giant Cleveland Browns fan. Super excited to have you on. I'm guessing probably the football side of it wasn't the best past weekend for you, but how was your Christmas?
It was so bad. It was so bad.
Well, jumping right in our stuff here, after losing a game like that to the Jets, what's kind of the vibe like amongst Cleveland Brown fans?
Okay, first off, I want to say, am I surprised that it happened? Not at all. Why would I be surprised? Like, you could tell me anything that could happen to the Browns, I would say, you know what, probably that would happen. But no, the vibe, I don't know. We still have hope. I mean, like, it's been a really great season. Like, I can't complain at all in any way because 2 years ago, we didn't even win a game. So am I happy? Yes. Could I be happier? Also, yes.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely feeling that as well, especially the Steeler fans after going through that, 4-game, really tough 4.5 game stretch, Jeffrey. What vibe are you kind of getting from this Steelers team that actually is finally won a game after a quarter and a half of good football? Is it Super Bowl or bust now, or are we still in the doom and gloom mode?
I think we've pulled out of the doom and gloom mode. I don't know if we're quite Super Bowl or bust is being back again, but this team now has, like, you can look at them and say, okay, we can beat anybody. Like, you don't just put up 21 points on the Colts in a half. That's not something they regularly let up. But we can also lose to anybody, as we've shown the week before in Cincinnati. So we're that team. If they decide to play great, we could challenge. We could make a push.
Now, Gab, looking at this game coming up, Mason Rudolph is the starter. Of all people to start this game, it's Mason Rudolph. I know I saw Sir Yacht, another huge Browns fan, saying if anyone is going to take this season out,
it's probably him.
End up being him. Is there any sort of worry that it's Mason Rudolph starting this game?
I don't think there's any worry that it's Mason. I just think that there's just worry because we're the Browns.
Yeah, no, I can feel that, but yeah, no, there's obviously, we'll get a little bit more into that Mason Rudolph, Myles Garrett stuff. Obviously, the Browns and Steelers aren't talking about it, but that's going to be an underlying tone throughout the week. But Jeffrey, this game, it doesn't matter for the Steelers. Like, win or lose, they're basically going to be the third seed. Does this game matter at all for you?
No, and I'm so happy about that. If you remember, I spelled out many times over the season my worst case scenario was the Steelers going into week 17 with that game really mattering, and it mattering for the Browns, like for number 1 seed or something like that, to get that bye. And then we have to face the Browns again. Like, I don't want 2 meaningful games against the Browns in a row, simply because I don't think there's any scenario where both teams come out of those games remotely healthy.
Yeah, no, obviously these AFC North matchups are brutal games, no matter what the lines are. Any team could literally win any game. But now what's different, obviously Kevin Stefanski, Gab, head coach of the Browns now, has really kind of righted the ship. What has he meant since he's kind of taken the reins and has led this organization?
Well, when they first hired him, there were a lot of people mad, which there's not any surprise there because each year there's a new guy, so we're always mad. But I think he's done a really great job. And until the last game, I would probably say that he was like in the talks for Coach of the Year. I think he beat himself that game for that. But if going from Freddie Kitchens to Kevin Stefanski, like, that's completely different scheme, completely different offense, completely different tone, vibe. Like, everything about this team is 1,000% better with him.
Yeah, now you mentioned that award, and Jeffrey, I think Mike Tomlin probably played himself out of that award too. Do you see a head coach of the year ending up in the AFC North, or is that kind of gone by after the last couple of game stretch for either team?
Yeah, I think that's gone.
Yeah.
Both teams, yeah, that's just gone.
Now, Jeffrey, Mason Rudolph starting this game with potentially a load of backups. Can you see any universe where he can be successful, or is this really just kind of throwing the dog to the wolves?
I think there are. It's not a good chance. I was going to come on and say that my choice of whether the Steelers win or lose this game is going to heavily depend on who's active, especially whether the Steelers rest David DeCastro. And with him not practicing, yeah, we're probably resting David DeCastro, and that means you've got a new center and you got a new guard, and we've got one quality backup left. So there's going to be trouble there. I'm kind of dialing back. I was starting to get excited in that, Steelers are going to go in week 17 and beat the Browns and knock them out of the playoffs. Like, I was getting hyped for that. Like, let's do this. Now I'm kind of backing off of that. I'm like, well, okay, you know what? With half the offensive line out, that's not probably going to happen.
Now, Gab, obviously you're known pretty well for especially trolling Steeler fans online and just really getting under people's skin. I saw your TikTok on Juju dancing on logos and then fumbling the ball. That was actually quite funny. I will give you credit for that. If the Browns win this game and beat the Steelers handily, because realistically they should, I think that's kind of what most people are expecting. You can see the betting lines. Are you still going to really try to poke that Steelers Twitter bear as much as you normally do in a game like this?
I have a little bit. I just want to say I don't do it to make people hate me, but they just don't stop interacting with it. So why stop getting that interaction? But I probably will a little bit. But I mean, it's Mason Rudolph. Come on. What can I say that much about him? I did see a couple memes though. I didn't post them. I don't know if you guys saw that video of the guy with the twisted tea can.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I saw a couple memes with that. That was pretty good. That was pretty funny. But that was the extent of it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's only going to pick up the closer we get to Sunday. Gab, right back to you. Obviously, the Browns this morning, there was a lot of panic that this COVID situation could start tumbling considerably. And I was a little worried about it. I think Steeler fans are just sick of it. Both sides, obviously everyone really. But now that it seems like it's kind of under control, especially the receiving core, that should basically all be activated tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah.
What does that mean, getting all those guys back?
I feel a little less anxiety, and I'm sure everybody else feels a little bit better. Clearly, our offense suffered without them, and we couldn't even run the ball because that was pathetic. But what it means, I guess I'll just be happier and less anxiety. But as a Browns fan, that never goes away.
Yeah, no, especially, since the revamp of 99, I do have a few friends that are Browns fans up here, and I do tend to feel bad for them. There's just that certain thing. It just, you're like a cuddly little brother. You just almost feel bad for him, but you still want to beat him up. Oh,
I know. Yeah, I lived in Pittsburgh for 3 years, so.
There you go. Yeah. Now, Jeffrey, with those receivers coming back, obviously Jarvis Landry, he's been a thorn in the Steelers side multiple times. What are they going to have to do to stop this guy, especially if you don't have Joe Hayden in the game?
I think even more importantly than Joe Hayden is the inside linebackers. You have to have inside help against Landry. It's similar to how teams defend Deontay Johnson. You can't just put a cornerback on him and expect that guy to follow him outside and inside. You have to have inside help. For Landry, that means the inside linebackers, and we are not in the best place with our inside linebackers. So he's the one that worries me more than anyone else. But that's always he's the one that beats us. He's the one that kills us. He's the big one. But if when they were out, I mean, if we could take them out and just be like, you don't have receivers, and we can do exactly what the Jets did, which was just absolutely disrespect your pass game and just put everyone in the box and be like, we don't have to cover anybody. You don't have anyone for us to cover. That would be a totally different thing. If the Browns can get the ball going on the ground, they can beat anyone in the NFL. Since Nick Chubb has come back, they've shown that they can beat anybody. They can just dominate time of possession. They can dominate the ball. So the receivers are a big deal. Because if we have to gang up on the run, they're the ones that beat you. But that's when Baker Mayfield gets really dangerous, is when Nick Chubb is just taking over the game.
Now, specifically, I want to mention this guy like Ezra Nehemiah does in the live chat. Nick Chubb is the real problem.
Yeah.
Now, Gab, what does he mean when he's on and going? This offense looks like a different animal. What does it mean having him on the field?
It means touchdowns. Having him on the field, literally, like he was the only one that scored touchdowns for like 4 weeks. We didn't even have a passing touchdown for almost a month. We had one. When he's on the field, we are a better team. Kareem also on the field, good team. And he was out for all those games, and he's still in like the top, like 8 for rushing yards?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Jeffrey, this game as well, we're talking about Nick Chubb, but potential that both Stephon Tuitt, Cam Hayward, they could both be out resting. Is there any way they can stop that guy if those two behemoths in the middle aren't playing?
Probably not. That's just he is ridiculous. I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan. He's just incredible. It stinks that he's in Cleveland because I can't root for him ever. But no, he's fantastic. He is the majority of their offense, and they've gotten a great thing going. When Nick Chubb gets going, Kareem Hunt gets going. It's just they're such a great 1-2 punch, and Stefanski is using them so well and how they use play action. They're just that deadly of a team.
Now, Gab, if you had to rank Nick Chubb in the hierarchy of NFL running backs, it's really tough. Like, there's an argument he could be 1, but I'm curious where would you rank him in that hierarchy?
I'm not going to put him 1 because he missed some games, and there's some people that are doing better than him. Maybe like 3.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see. It's kind of hard to touch what Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook he's kind of taken a step back, but Alvin Kamara has picked it up in the later half of the season. So yeah, that's absolutely fair. But coming right back to you, Baker Mayfield, obviously that's kind of that piece that's, it's kind of hard to explain. Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? Is there any part of you throughout this year that is kind of like, can we get Case Keenum potentially in here for a snap or 2? Or what are you feeling on that?
I said the pick 6, Minka pick 6. I said it, put Case in. I said that. Now, however, during those times, he was very bad. I'm not going to lie. It was terrible to watch. It was bad. Has he gotten better throughout the season? Yes. And I think it goes with settling in the offense. Again, new coach, new whatever. Getting used to it. And I think we finally found a little bit of a rhythm, and it looks way better than before. So.
Now, Jeffrey, I know we talked about it before that we were like, oh man, this Browns team could be really good. Obviously 10 wins. That's the most they've had since 2007. Do you think there'd be a difference if the Steelers were preparing for a Baker Mayfield or a Case Keenum?
There's a little bit of difference, but mostly it's the scheme. You've got to prepare for the scheme. You've got to prepare for his wide receivers, and the run game. That's what you've got to be ready to deal with that, and the play action. I don't think, to me, Baker Mayfield is a good, not great quarterback. He hasn't proven that step. And really, if you look at the games Nick Chubb was out, and you look at how like the games where Baker Mayfield was bad, they kind of line up. Like, he had that fantastic game against Cincinnati. Other than that, all of his bad games were when Nick Chubb was out.
Yeah, and obviously those two pretty well weigh heavily on one another. If Nick Chubb's on, it just makes the play action that much easier. But Gab, when you look at the Browns offense, if you had to pinpoint one player and say that's the most underrated player in this offense, they need a little bit more hype. If you could point to one person anywhere, even a backup, is there one person that sticks out to you?
Wyatt Teller. I mean, he gets a lot of credit. He does. But you saw what happened. He was out, lost to the Jets. And that was a big part of it.
Now, looking at that injury report from the Browns, I think I saw Jedrick Wills. Probably said that wrong. I think he practiced fully today.
Yeah.
The rest, a lot of that offensive line is limited. Have you seen any reports that could suggest that we could still be missing those guys come Sunday, or what's?
I don't think we're going to be. I hope not. Oh my God, I hope not. I don't think we're going to be. So let's just hope that they're all going to be out there.
So with that in mind, then, if you're missing Wyatt Teller again, is that a significant loss for that offense?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a significant loss. And then the guy that replaced him, ACL, MCL, something. He tore his knee. Now we have a rookie in. The first game he did really well. The last game, not so much. So.
Yeah. Now, Jeffrey, when we look at the Steelers' defensive side, it's certainly possible they rest both corners. It's possible Steven Nelson gets a day off. I know he's a little bit on the younger side, but still, it's definitely likely, especially with the guys behind them. Cameron Sutton, Justin Lane, those would be the guys that would get the start opposite one another. Can they replace anything that those two guys above them can do, and do you have any faith as them as a starting duo?
I have no faith in them as a starting duo, no. Cameron Sutton is a great depth piece. The minute he starts playing, like close to 100% of snaps, when he's playing most of the game, you can get to him. He's not that kind of corner. And Justin Lane has his moments, but when you get him out there against a receiver and let a good receiver get constant snaps at him, they start getting in his head. They mess with him. They're going to beat him. They're going to figure him out pretty quickly. They're going to beat him. Last time those two played, we couldn't stop anything. Like, it's just not. It's not in the cards. You can't do that. So if they rest both of the cornerbacks, I mean, Baker Mayfield's going to look really good.
Yeah, and obviously that's going to be a situation in basically any game if top two corners are out. But looking at this Browns receiving core, Gab, obviously Odell Beckham blew out his ACL, out for the year. Outside of Jarvis Landry, who's really kind of picking up that slack in the passing game? Who are the other receivers that we should be watching out for?
Rashard Higgins, definitely Rashard Higgins. Even Baker, they've had chemistry since his first time out there. I mean, they always talk about it all the time. And you can see, I don't know, I just saw it. It was like on Twitter or something. He's like 9th in the league for any like not passing yards, but like attempt, like how, I don't know how I'm trying to say it. Like every time he gets the ball, it's far down the field.
Yards per target?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
He's a big guy.
Yeah, like the Browns Chase Claypool, I suppose could be a way to throw that out there. But Jeffrey, when I specifically look at this matchup, I'm assuming Alejandro Villanueva probably rests, but even if he does play, he's been struggling in recent weeks. Myles Garrett has been a problem for Alejandro Villanueva even when he's playing well. Does that matchup scare the living hell out of you right now, or what's the vibe there?
It would if it was Ben Roethlisberger, but this game doesn't matter. So, and Mason Rudolph's playing quarterback. So yeah, is Myles Garrett gonna be a real problem for the Steelers? Yeah, but it's not a real problem for the Steelers because if the Browns win this game, it doesn't affect us. It's not going to be Ben Roethlisberger. He's back there hitting, and that's what Mason's here to do. Mason's here to take those shots.
Now, Gab, we're sitting in this Steelers live chat. We can. I don't want to throw you under the bus in front of all these people, but I want you to give me your honest opinion. T.J. Watt or Myles Garrett? Who would you rather have?
I'm taking Myles Garrett.
And why?
Great guy, good at football, likes dinosaurs, good at football.
I can see that for sure. But Jeffrey, the other guy in that equation, T.J. Watt, obviously he's up for probably who knows with Defensive Player of the Year award, whatever. But one thing he could potentially pick up this week when it comes to kind of accolades is if he does play and picks up one more sack. He's tying James Harrison for the sacks in a season record. Do you think TJ Watt plays at all, especially with the injuries to the outside linebackers? And if he does, do you think that record means something to Tomlin? Because in years past, we've seen the Steelers play all three, or make sure all the Edmonds brothers are on the field at the same time and dress 5 running backs, which is a little inexplicable in a game when they were playing Buffalo and they had 4 defensive linemen. So do you think the Steelers might still try to potentially work that in, maybe give him a quarter, or what are you thinking in that situation, Jeffrey?
It's possible. If he's going to play, he's going to play. Really, I could see the situation where he plays until the game gets out of hand. Either the Steelers are up or the Browns are stomping us and then is out. I could see him not playing at all. I don't know how much that registers with Tomlin or not. Sometimes it seems like he does play guys for those numbers. Like we all saw the end of Hines Ward's career where they were just forcing him the ball to get him, get him those 1,000 receptions. But at the same time, other times he's sacked guys when they had chances to make a mark. Single game stats, some of them. But I don't know if he plays or not. I really he really hasn't been banged up. And then we had that weird tweet from Ola Adeni.
Yeah. Today
it was like it's still a business, and I'm like is something going down there? Like I don't know. I have no clue what's going on there. If TJ Watt plays, he has a really great chance of breaking that record. He has had fantastic games against Cleveland his entire career, so he's got that shot.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. I think Deontay Johnson also had a fairly cryptic tweet just before we went live, something along the same line. So who really knows what's going on there? I think they might just be messing with us, but I guess we'll kind of see as the week goes on. But sorry,
I wonder is if it's COVID related, or because we know the tests are going on. It could be like, oh, it's a business. We're playing this game when they want us to play this game because it's of money. There's all kinds of ways that could go. So I don't know.
I'm not going to look into it too much. But one other guy really quickly that is potentially close to a personal best or a personal achievement, I guess, Tyson Alualu, nose tackle. Could be his last ever regular season game, 4 tackles away from 400 in his career. I mean, you kind of hope for a guy to get that. Retiring at 399 would be sad, honestly. And I don't know. Would you want to come back for 1 tackle and probably minimum money? Probably not. I see Gab shaking her head. But coming straight back down to you, if TJ Watt does play in this game, obviously Jeffrey said TJ's had some outstanding games against the Browns. I think he's had 2 3-sack games over the course of his stretch. How do the Browns stop a guy like that?
You don't, probably. Probably don't. To be honest, he'll have some good plays. And he'll have some good ones that aren't as good as the sack. And that's probably what will happen. And I'll probably be upset.
And that's understandable. Now, Gab, coming straight back to you. I think this is the most important question that people have really been waiting for. Do you foresee anyone's helmet getting forcibly ripped off their head?
No. No, I hope not.
Yeah, that really did leave a stain, I would say, on all of last season for either team. That was just kind of an interesting situation, to say the very least.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Oh, really? What was it like there in the crowd when that happened?
You were just so excited because you sacked Mason, you sacked him again, he's on the ground, and then all of a sudden you don't know what's going on. And you're like, oh, we're winning. This is so cool. We don't ever do this. This is so sick. And then you're like, wait, why is everybody on the field running around at each other and screaming at each other? And then you're like, oh, he just hit him in the head. Oh. And then there was way more fights on the field that they didn't show because that's a focal point. But it was nuts. It was crazy. Oh, yeah. It was not good.
Now I'm curious, did they replay that on the Jumbotron so people saw exactly what happened? Oh, did you have to see it on Twitter or whatever?
Oh, yeah, it's going.
Wow, that's really interesting. Actually,
replay that.
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised though. I'm sure they probably caught it and they're like, maybe we'll keep that one off. But that's really interesting. Now, Jeffrey, in the same vein, Mason Rudolph, obviously playing in this game. Do you think he has any extra motivation that's added on because of what's happened in the past?
I can't imagine. This is again one of my stances. If that motivates you more than you already are, then you've got problems. If Mason Rudolph, this is his chance to start. I'm sure a big part of his motivation is going to be trying to get a win because he was awful in that game. That really the storyline of that game changed from, Mason Rudolph was absolutely terrible to look at this terrible thing that happened. That moment shifted that focus away from just how bad Mason Rudolph was, especially as that game was going on. Cleveland's getting pressure on him, and he's absolutely falling apart as a quarterback. And then he gets hit in the head. It kind of saved him from that. So his motivation really should be he played awful against the Browns, and he has a chance here to get a little redemption, to go back out and do something positive.
Yeah, I think that he wants some redemption too, because the only 2 things you remember of him are 2 helmet situations. One where they cut the face mask off, one he gets hit in the head. Maybe win a game.
I will say Mason Rudolph got trashed a lot this offseason and during the season, even though he hasn't played a whole lot other than a couple snaps in Dallas when Ben was getting his knees checked out before halftime. But his last game he played against the Jets, he played the best game of his career before he broke his collarbone. So if he could play that level of efficiency, he was completing 70% of his passes in that game, maybe we'll see something. But my expectations are still low with who is actually going to be in this game. Now, Gab, as a Browns fan, obviously you've watched this team for a long time. I have an article coming out tomorrow on Behind the Steel Curtain kind of about don't discredit the Browns' ability to Browns this game. Does that ring true to you? Is that like an honest assessment?
Yeah. Look at last week. Terrible. I'm not kidding. You could tell me anything and I'd say, yeah, that probably happened. Like that'll happen. Like anything at all to this team, and I would say, like, would that be surprising? No, not at all.
Yeah, no, and the unfortunate thing is for the Browns. I mean, I'm sure Steelers fans would probably like it, but the way it's shaping up, it's basically coming down to the Browns winning this game. If they lose, I know they're still statistically more likely to make the playoffs, but the teams that have to win are playing against teams that really don't have to dress players. It's really going to be one of those situations where it's like win and you're in. That's the only real way to make it. But if the Browns and Steelers still, for whatever, it doesn't, like, if they win, if they lose, there's still a chance they could be playing one another. That's the most likely situation for the wild card.
Yeah.
If they play each other back-to-back weeks, does that concern you about the second game that it might mean something different? Like it's kind of hard to explain, but back-to-back, it's harder to win 2 in a row.
Yeah, well, both are concerning. First one being more, because like if we make the playoffs, I'm gonna lose it. Like,
of course.
Like if we make the playoffs, that could be it. I don't care what else happens. I do care what else happens, but like still, I'm like, you can't say anything for a while because we made it. So.
No, totally fair. Now, Jeffrey, it's one of the things we talked about earlier, like the last 4 weeks, really. There's actually probably before that, probably around the Steelers
before that.
Week. Yeah, like we were talking, like there's a chance they play the Browns like back to back. Jeffrey, what are you feeling about that right now?
I feel a lot better about that than if we were playing Ben Roethlisberger, if we were playing Marquise, if we were playing our top guys. I think it carries a lot less weight the second game with those guys not playing. If it's Baker Mayfield, Ben Roethlisberger, and then you turn around a week later and it's Baker Mayfield, Ben Roethlisberger, I don't want to see that, just because we've seen how many times Cleveland and Pittsburgh, we just beat the snot out of each other, even when the game doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So when it does matter, when the Browns are playing for their playoff lives, they're fighting out there. This is going to be, I don't want to use the word fighting. They're going to be out there playing their hardest. They're going to be hitting people. It's going to be, it's going to be a rough game, just like if it was the Ravens, just like if it was the Bengals. And that second game, if it's a Browns-Steelers playoff game, that game is going to be like next level. That is just the city of Cleveland is going to be feeding so much energy into that team, just like the city of Pittsburgh. They're going to be hearing it all week, everywhere they go. Anytime, like you turn on a computer, you turn on the television, there's going to be nothing but Cleveland, Pittsburgh in the playoffs. It's going to set the world on fire. And those two teams, it's going to be an absolutely crazy game.
Yeah, if they would play each other and the Browns would happen to win, I think the city would burn and there'd be more people than they were here for the Cavs parade.
Oh goodness, yeah, that I could definitely see that. Now, Gab, we're getting to the 30-minute mark. I know we talked about doing just a quick 30 minutes with you. I'm going to rattle out 3 quick questions for you, and then we'll let you get on with your day. The first one is a question we always ask all of our guests. If you could take one player off the Steelers, drop them onto the Browns, who would it be? Except there's one caveat, because everyone said TJ Watt for about 10 weeks. Exactly. So that's the thing. You can't take TJ Watt, but you can pick one other player to slap on the Browns.
I'll pick Chase Claypool because I think he's funny and cool.
Yeah. Oddly enough, Chase Claypool and I almost went to the same school. Obviously, I'm a lot worse than football than he is because I'm talking here and he's preparing for a game. Didn't end up happening, but oh well. X factor for the game. Who's the one player that you're like, that person could completely sway this game?
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could either fumble 3 times or throw a million touchdowns. I don't know which one it's going to be.
That's probably what this game comes down to as well. I mean, it's probably more likely he's throwing the touchdowns considering who he's probably going to be facing. But to top it off, our last question always, the score prediction for the game. Who do you got winning? What's the final score?
I hate this. It makes me so sick when I have to say this. I'm going to say 34-13 Browns.
You know what? That's not unreasonable. Like it's a 10.5 point game right now to most sports books, so that's totally fair. Now, as we let you go, is there anything you want to plug before we say goodbye?
Yeah, can I actually plug something? I'm doing a giveaway. Well, it's kind of like a charity at the same time. Go for it. So I have an extra ticket for the Browns-Steelers game this Sunday, and on Twitter I am raffling it off, and it's like $1 equals 1 entry. And all the money raised is going to the Cleveland Food Bank. So if anybody wants a chance to win a ticket to the game, to hang out with me, my friends, go to it. So far, there's almost $1,500 raised for the Cleveland Food Bank.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And this time of the year, especially with the year we're going through, I think Steelers fan, Brown fan, Raven fan, who cares? It's an important thing to do. So, Gab, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
All right, we'll talk soon. See ya.
See ya.
All right, Jeffrey. I guess that will do it for part 1. So I'll get into questions with you on the other side here. If you're listening on the podcast side, just make sure to flip over to part 2 now. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we are back once again for another edition of Know Your Enemy. My name is Michael Beck, joined as always by Jeffrey Benedict. In our first part, we talked to Gab Gowdy, a really big online presence, Cleveland Browns fan. Jeffrey, obviously this game means a ton for them. Because the Steelers have no pressure, do you think that they could find success in that? Because they're playing for nothing, essentially.
Yeah, I think we could. I really think we could have a really good game. And there's a pretty decent chance the Steelers win this. Cleveland isn't going to know what's coming at them. Like, especially from the Steelers offense, with Mason Rudolph playing. I don't expect the wide receivers to sit. Maybe James Conner's out, but that's still this could be a game where you see Anthony McFarland get a lot of play time and maybe do something.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. Now, one of the big developments I think I'll obviously be keeping an eye on Sunday, Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills. That game does have a little impact on the Steelers. Buffalo, probably like the Steelers, should be resting players. There's no reason for them not to, especially with the Steelers already announcing they are. Miami's playing for their playoff live. I think they're a much better team than the Browns and have a good chance of beating the Buffalo Bills backups if that's what it comes down to. If the Steelers end up beating the Browns, does moving up to the 2nd seed or being the 3rd seed mean absolutely anything? Because I see a ton of people online saying, oh, we still need a push for the 2nd seed. Does that mean anything?
Not really to me. I don't think home and away really matters that much, especially in the playoffs. We've seen Ben Roethlisberger walk into some, walk up against some really phenomenal teams in their home stadium and just show up and play out and single-handedly demolish teams. So I'm not worried about that. This defense doesn't have any difference in home and away splits. So I'm not really worried about home field or really even who we play right now. It's a mess of teams at the bottom. They're all roughly equal.
It's funny. I was watching NFL Network this morning, I believe it was, and they're talking about how it's coming down to the Bills and the Chiefs. But I think if the Steelers ended up going to Buffalo, I think they could beat them. Is that unreasonable?
Oh, I mean, we were playing terribly in that game. It wasn't like they demolished us. It constantly felt like the Steelers were there. They were on the right path. They just couldn't get it done. I think if they're playing well, they definitely can beat Buffalo. The offensive line is such a huge part of that. J.C. Hassenauer playing center was bad enough. Playing guard was just a nightmare. Like that game was a mess, and Ben Roethlisberger was legitimately terrible in that game. And the receivers dropping everything. It was just bad. That was just a horrible game. I'd love to get another shot at that team.
Now, obviously, before we get more of this Browns talk, but there's going to be the wild card matchup will be determined. It could be 5 opponents. Like, we will not know until Sunday's over. But is there one of these teams that are competing for an AFC wildcard spot you're like, I hope it's not them?
It's still the Browns.
Really?
Like, honestly, I'm not worried about the Ravens. Like, the Ravens can run on you, and you're like, okay, you picked up some yards on us, but you still can't throw the ball. And, like, all we have to do is be able to score, and we can score on them. Ben Roethlisberger can score on the Ravens if he's not playing horribly. I think if our offensive line is intact, we can do it. We can beat that team. We're getting things going. It doesn't really matter to me. But with Cleveland, with their play action, and with Nick Chubb, they concern me a lot more than the Ravens do.
Interesting. Now, and of course, playing back-to-back games, that's a huge factor. So I totally see that too against the same team. Continuing the same vein, though, I can see a world where Baltimore ends up being the 7th seed. They play Buffalo. They're red hot. We got to give the Ravens some credit. They go into Buffalo, say they beat the Bills. Then they're going into Kansas City. Is it possible that the Steelers could have like the AFC Championship game at home against Baltimore? Is that something that's feasible?
Oh, that's absolutely feasible. We've seen this. We've seen Harbaugh take a team that lost 4 of its last 5 games and win the Super Bowl. We could very feasibly see, the Ravens roll through some people. Kansas City, like, they haven't won a game by more than 6 points in a while. Like, they're not really putting teams away. Buffalo is one of those teams that they're similar to the Ravens have been. That their offense is killer, but their defense can barely get out of its own way. And I think we played that offense actually really well against Buffalo. If we had scored some points, if we had run the ball with them, if we had been able to score with them, we would have had that game, in my opinion. So the Bills don't really worry me that much. Kansas City, again, I'm not that scared of them. Their defense isn't there this year. Last year, their defense had that great year, similar to what the Saints saw in 2009, where that 1 year where their defense was really good, and they won it. Kansas City had the same thing. I don't think they're what the media is saying they are. I don't think they are what the talking heads are saying they are.
Now, when we look at the Steelers, they played 1.5 really good quarters of football against the Colts and really blew them out of the water. If they played that way the whole game, Ben would have probably broke every single passing record there was in football. That's how well he played in that quarter and a half.
Yeah.
Are the Steelers back?
I hope. What I want to see is Ben not on fire, because he can do that for a quarter and a half. He can do that for a set period of time. He never plays he played 2 games like that where he had like the 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. He played that way for a whole game once. We're not going to see that for a whole game. What I want to see is when he isn't lighting it up, when things aren't just clicking, I want to see him play smarter. I want to see him not getting out of his good mechanics and throwing really bad passes, not just sitting there staring down Deontay Johnson for half a second before he throws. Get the ball, stare at Deontay Johnson and throw it super quick and no one's open. If we see him playing smart, good football and being able to turn that on, that's when we're a Super Bowl contender. That's when he wins.
Now, getting into this Browns game again, we talked about Mason Rudolph a lot. I know in the Behind the Steel Curtain group chat, there was a little bit of talk about Josh Dobbs. Do you see him entering the field of play at all without an injury, just playing a series or 2?
With DeCastro not playing, yes. I think they end up with Dobbs in there because, who's our other guard? We've got Hassenauer plays for Pouncey.
Isadora, right?
Yeah. Who's that? He hasn't played with these guys. You're going to put him next to Chuks Okorafor? No. Yeah, Chuks Okorafor. And what, that's just... That has me worried. And I think if you're getting pressure up the middle, Mason Rudolph isn't the guy you want standing in there. He tends to stand in the pocket a bit more. And I think we will see Dobbs at some point. I don't know if it's Mason's playing terribly and so Dobbs gets in, Dobbs replaces him, or if it's just they put in Dobbs for a few series just to see what happens.
It's funny you mentioned that too about the quarterbacks. Now I'm kind of looking at it. Myles Garrett's only 3 sacks off the NFL lead, who's TJ Watt at 15. Is it possible he just comes in and just snatches that sack king title away from Watt and playing up against a pretty downright awful Steelers offensive line that we're gonna probably see on Sunday?
Well, yeah, like if Alejandro Villanueva doesn't play and it's Mason Rudolph back there with
Gerald Hawkins, probably.
Gerald Hawkins protecting him. Yeah, I can see that happening. I could really, and like if TJ Watt doesn't play week 17, right? Alejandro Villanueva doesn't play, and Myles Garrett gets like 3.5 sacks. You could, I mean, just imagine like what behind the steel curtain would be like. Just imagine what Steelers fandom would be like, what the radio shows would be like. We're like, they cost TJ Watt his defensive player, because it would. Like they'd be like, "Yep, Myles Garrett gets defensive player of the year. We were going to vote for TJ, but then that one game happened." Like the NFL would do that. Those people would do it. So yeah, I could totally see that happening. That would be such a Browns Steelers thing to happen.
Yeah, that would leave a pretty sour taste in my mouth. Like, I know awards are stupid, but like it still kind of means something, especially when they're like your favorite players, and winning these awards matters if you want to be a Hall of Famer. Like it or not, it still means something. Your legacy means something. So
I will say this though: if TJ Watt doesn't play, and the Steelers are going to play the Browns in the first round of the playoffs, I would love to see that be the situation in which it happens. Like the Browns win this game behind Myles Garrett going absolutely off and destroying Gerald Hawkins, and TJ Watt sits and gets nothing and watches Myles Garrett take his spot from him and win the defense, and like become the favorite for defensive player of the year again, because in the playoffs, it would be worth it. It'd be like, yeah, sorry, TJ didn't get that. Why don't you go destroy everyone? Just go wreck shop and carry this team to the playoffs. He'd have like strip sacks every play. He'd just be like beasting. You see like angry TJ Hulk out and just crush everything.
See, I don't know TJ Watt personally, but just like seeing him play, you kind of just know he's got that little brother complex.
Mm-hmm.
He watches what JJ does. Like, when JJ's like, "Oh, look at my 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards," and you see those funny videos, he's just like,
yeah. TJ's like, and then every once in a while, JJ Watt will be like, "No, TJ got robbed, guys. Seriously, he got robbed. He should already have one.
Yeah,
but, I've got 3 and he's got 0. Sorry, a little bit." Like he's got that kind of thing where he's like, "No, really, you should have gotten that one, but I've got 3."
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. Like, it's funny how different the brothers are. Just get on a tangent really quick, but like, JJ is like the loving, just like whatever almost attitude. TJ is like, it pisses me off that he has 3, and until I have 4, I'm not going to be happy. It really is funny. So,
what's killed me is watching JJ Watt this season with TJ and Derek both on the Steelers and them winning, and him on a team that has just completely lost its way. And you see how much winning matters to JJ Watt. And TJ, we fortunately haven't had to have that moment with TJ, because they have always been in a chance. Like up until through week 17, last year, week 17, they had a chance to make the playoffs. So like TJ Watt was never in that position, and he absolutely destroyed people last year trying to get the defense in the playoffs, just trying to be like, this defense is going to carry this team to the playoffs. And they couldn't, obviously, because you do have to score points on offense.
Yeah. Hey, 2 years in a row, the Steelers choked out of the playoffs in week 17. So it's not one of those things where TJ's really experienced a whole lot of losing. And that's, one of my most popular tweets ever, 3,600 likes this past week, was tagging JJ Watt in a picture of his brothers wearing AFC North championship t-shirts, saying, "Oh, you're going to be in this photo next year?" And honestly, if the Texans cut him, I could see him play for next to nothing for a chance to win, be it in Pittsburgh or wherever. I think that's something we might actually see happen with him, but that's a completely random tangent we just ran off on. But swinging it back to this game and trying to keep it on the same genuine topic for outside pass rushers, it kind of looks like Cassius Marsh and Ola Denny would be the starters if Watt and Highs. I highly doubt Alex Highsmith would get a week off, but if he were to, it'd be a Denny and Marsh. Does that pass rush, like, do you think those guys are going to get a sack, like even one sack? Does the sack streak die this week?
I don't think it dies. I think Tuitt's going to play, and I think Highsmith's going to play. But even if they don't, man, I can tell you, I actually really like Cassius Marsh. I like Cassius Marsh's game. He was very active on the field in his few snaps. He had that enormous hit on special teams. He plays like what the Steelers want their backup linebackers to be, like kind of what I think Tomlin wishes Jaron Elliott was. That kind of guy who will make a big hit every once in a while. What Anthony Chickillo was there for a few seasons when he made plays on special teams, and then he'd come in on defense and play better than most backups. But I think Cassius Marsh, he shows actual athleticism. They had him dropping into coverage, something they never do with Ola Adeniyi. So Cassius Marsh, I would not be surprised if say it's Highsmith and Ola Adeniyi starting. I would not be surprised if you saw Marsh take a lot of snaps for Ola Adeniyi.
You know what? I with that hit specifically, when I saw that happen live, I'm like, that play probably just bought him a spot in training camp next year.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, that was a really big play, a momentum shifter of sorts as well. Laying hits like that, and he's been a pretty good pass rusher his entire career as a third down guy. He has 14 sacks, and he hasn't been in the NFL very long.
Yep,
he's ridden the pine the last couple of years too. He's someone who could potentially play next year as a rotational piece, and I wouldn't be surprised by that in the slightest. But when you look at this team as a whole, how many guys do you actually expect to rest?
Cam Hayward is definitely going to rest. DeCastro, Pouncey. Anytime Ben Roethlisberger's out, like, why are you playing Pouncey? Like, we all saw in 2019, he had an absolutely awful season. This year, he's so much better. Yeah. How many bad snaps has he had? Only like a couple. That's the normal number. Last year was all the time. So him and Ben kind of are locked together. So I really, he's out. He's done. DeCastro, I expect to be out. Villanueva, he never is out. Never. And I think that's him. I don't think that's a coach decision. I think that's him being like, no, my team's out there, I'm playing. Like that, he has that. Like, I don't know how many people know military families. Like, I grew up with a kid who was from a military family, and like he would fight with a coach. Like, he was hurt. The doctor was like, you can't play. His coach is like, you can't play. And he was ready to fight the coach. Like, to be like, I can play. I'll show you I can play. And you're like, dude, you need to chill, because they have that mentality. I can see that being Alejandro Villanueva. So I could see him playing. I could see them talking to him and being like, no, you are going to sit, and him doing it. I mean, he's not going to raise too much of a stink. That was one I can see going either way. I think Tuitt plays. I think Stephon Tuitt plays. And I think just because, like, you can't go in there with Alu. Bugs was a healthy scratch, so we'd have him like Carlos Davis and Mondo. I mean, I guess you could, but that's not enough bodies. That's 4 bodies. You really can't do that. Someone's got to be active. So I think Tuitt's active. I think TJ Watt plays. I think Hayden will be out. I think everyone else plays. I think you see Nelson, Tuitt, Highsmith. I think you see. I'm going to go with Alejandro Villanueva playing too.
One thing I think we might see is like Minka Fitzpatrick on the bench and Sean Davis plays the game, and just like as a emergency type player. I think that's something we could potentially see happening. But with you mentioning Alejandro Villanueva, there's been reports all year long that he's been planning to retire after the season. So this could be his last regular season game. So if the coach is like, hey, you're sitting, he could be like, this is it for me. No, like I have an Iron Man streak. It means something to me. I'm going to play. Like,
that's Joe true. Thomas, he does. Yeah.
Yeah. And like one of the things I've heard a lot amongst NFL circles is even if DeCastro's struggling, it's like you can't take him out. It's his job. It's like if he's playing bad, he's got to pull himself for playing bad. He's not going anywhere. So a lot of these offensive linemen, like you're saying, it's like it's kind of their choice. But I agree with Ben being out. That Pouncey's gonna be like, all right, now I'll take the week off too. And again, I guess we also got to remember that bye week never really happened. So Do you think it means more because they haven't had a bye week that guys might be more likely to take a week off?
I absolutely do think so. And with Pouncey, he was drafted in 2010.
Yeah.
Like that as a center. Centers don't last like that. Like that's one of the crazy things people don't realize about Marquise Pouncey is this is his 11th year playing center. He started from year 1. This is his 11th year playing center. That is rough. And honestly, Marquise Pouncey could be like, no, I'm playing. And Mike Tomlin would be like, no, you're not. like he just say like that. It would just be that like, no, you're not. Ben's not playing. You're not playing. Yeah. David DeCastro, I want to go out here and say this. He played better this past week. He was substantially better. And really what turned the game around is when the Steelers realized they didn't have to double DeForest Buckner. They didn't have to at all. Kevin Dotson handled him one-on-one. David DeCastro, as bad as he has played in previous weeks, handled DeForest Buckner one-on-one. DeCastro is coming around. He's doing better. So I love the fact that he could sit this week and get like just get yourself back. You're back like, maybe he was 50, 60% before. Now he's maybe up to 80%. You get yourself up into the realm where you're back to being an asset to this line instead of a guy where like, oh gosh, DeCastro's getting pushed into the backfield again. He was doing better this game. Get him back, man. If DeCastro, Dotson, and Pouncey are ready to go for the playoffs, this team is dangerous.
This is off topic, but exercise that kind of just popped into my mind. Ezra Nehemiah says Pouncey is a Hall of Famer. Say lightning strikes. The Steelers do end up winning the Super Bowl this year. I'm going to list a couple names at you really quickly. You tell me whether or not a Super Bowl ring makes them a Hall of Famer. So first one, Marquise Pouncey.
I think he's a Hall of Famer. He doesn't have to win it. He's a Hall of Famer. But
David DeCastro.
See, that's a problem. I think Pouncey makes it because he's a center and he has all those records. DeCastro would be rough for them to put 2 offensive linemen from that team in there. So I'm going to go no. Ooh. Or at least he would have to wait. And like we've seen with Faneca, I don't think DeCastro is quite Alan Faneca. If DeCastro doesn't get in early, I don't think he gets in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see that too. Now, obviously, Ben Roethlisberger, he's already going in no matter what. 3 rings just like is a solidifier amongst all solidifiers, although he's already a lock for that. Defensive side, 2 guys popped to my mind. Joe Hayden.
I think Joe Hayden, a Super Bowl actually makes a huge difference for him, especially if he continues to make some picks in the playoffs. Like, as I say, he picks off like, somebody in the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, like in a big play. Super Bowl absolutely is all he needs. Like he needs something there to be like, I did something in the postseason, because the Steelers haven't done a lot in the postseason since he's been on this team. They really haven't. So a nice postseason run even would be of serious help to him. Super Bowl win would put him over the top.
Cam Hayward.
Absolutely. Another same case. If they win the Super Bowl, you're going to look at this team and say, look, this is Cam Hayward's defense. I think you'll get T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick, but Cam Hayward will suddenly get a ton more credit than he does, even now, if they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like the younger names, it's kind of hard because they don't have the resume. They could retire tomorrow. Like if T.J. Watt retired after the season, he's probably not making the Hall of Fame, even if he's the defensive player of the year. If he was a Super Bowl MVP, it's still not enough of a resume. But is there any other names? Stephon Tuitt, Alejandro. Is there anyone else that's sticking out that could be in that group? No one's. I mean, the young guy like a Minkah Fitzpatrick, T.J. Watt, guys like that, it would seriously help them in the future. Get in. They have a shot now, so we'll see how the rest of their careers go. But no one other than that. I will say, I think it absolutely scuttles Antonio Brown making the Hall of Fame if the Steelers win the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, totally.
It'll be a big black mark on him.
Yeah, absolutely it would. That would be huge. Well, the tough thing is 2015 that the Steelers, there's injuries killed. That was a Super Bowl team. But we do have a super chat I should bring up here. This is from Snowman. He puts $5 in the tip jar and he says, who would you rather play in the playoffs? The Dolphins, the Ratbirds being the Baltimore Ravens, the Clowns being the Cleveland Browns, or the Indianapolis Colts?
I'm going to put them in order. I want the Ravens, the Colts, then the Dolphins, then the Browns. Ravens first.
Interesting.
Really? There is nothing better in this life than sweeping the Ravens.
Yeah. Okay.
You sweep the Ravens. It's and also we do pretty well. We do pretty well when we face the Ravens 3 times and win all 3. So yeah, I'd love that. Face the Ravens the 3rd time. Like if we face him in the first round and we stop Lamar Jackson from getting a playoff win again, then it's Super Bowl time. Like that's it's that kind of a season. I'd love it.
Yeah, I totally get that. But if it came to losing to a team, I would not want it to be Baltimore. That would just make the offseason sting so much more.
I don't think it would happen. I don't think it would happen just because I don't think Ben's going to lose to Baltimore. Like
I like that.
Like he would be out there like murdering himself on the field to win that game. Like you see him running for first downs, like old John Elway style, to be like, no, I will not lose to Baltimore.
Could you imagine seeing Ben Roethlisberger at his age, his arthritic knees, doing a helicopter?
Jumping like the helicopter? Yeah, we'd all be like, no, don't do
He would get up. Knowing Ben, he'd lay there for about 15 minutes and then come back in the play after. That would be Ben Roethlisberger.
I've got broken ribs right here. Broken ribs. It's okay. I can still throw.
My back is broke. Spinal. To quote the great Mike Tyson.
Oh, my goodness.
As we get to the top of the hour here, we should get into our usual rotation of final questions. But if you're plucking one guy off the Browns and throwing him on the Steelers, who would it be?
Nick Chubb, 100% Nick Chubb. The other option, no, I won't. I'll let you say it. Go ahead. I'm going Nick Chubb.
Oh, you're waiting for me to say Myles Garrett?
Are you going to?
Just because you're going to say Nick Chubb, I'd go Myles Garrett, but like the pass rush is already so good. But then you look at the Giants when they won their Super Bowls, their pass rush was 3 deep on the edge and just insane players. So it's kind of hard not to go that direction as well.
And also like Myles Garrett naturally plays on the right, TJ naturally plays on the left. You would have the 2 best edge rushers in the game. You didn't ask me. You've asked me before who's better, Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, and I took Myles Garrett, and I'll still stick with that. I still think, the whole rounded out game, it's Myles Garrett, and Myles Garrett does not have Keith Butler's blitz packages. He doesn't have Stephon Tuitt. I mean, Stephon Tuitt has 10 sacks. Yeah. TJ has what, 15? They've got 25 sacks between the 2 of them because you can't double 2 guys on the same side. You can't do it. Tuitt's wrecking shop, TJ's wrecking shop. Teams are just like, there's no way to defend that. You just can't defend that. So that gives bonus points to TJ. TJ is a phenomenal player. But I think it's super close, but I'll still go Myles Garrett slightly ahead of TJ.
One thing before we get out of note as well with Myles Garrett, since he tested positive for coronavirus, he has looked gassed a ton of times this year. He's been getting better, but he looked absolutely completely blown up in the last couple of weeks. So something to keep an eye on. A potential reason why he might not have a 4-sack game like we were worrying about earlier, but it's one of those situations to keep an eye on. But obviously, X factors are our next typical question. So what would you go there?
Okay, Mason Rudolph is starting this game. My X factor is Matt Canada, because we get to really cover this. This is my prediction for the game. I haven't gotten to say this much at all, so I'm gonna steal a minute here to say it. But the reason they abandoned all of those Matt Canada packages, the reason they got away from play action, all this stuff that they practiced in the preseason, that they have used in the season, they know it. It's in their playbook. They stopped using it because it doesn't work with Ben. And Ben is good enough at his game that, you design your offense and you run what he runs best. You just do that. Mason Rudolph isn't Ben. Mason last year did not run Ben Roethlisberger's offense well. This team, unlike last year, has Mason Rudolph taking over, and they have an offense that's closer to the college game Mason Rudolph played, that has worked, has shown signs of working, has gotten receivers open and helped the run game. And they've been practicing it. They've used it. It just hasn't worked with Ben. Mason Rudolph in there this year. In this game, that's my X factors. I think we're going to see a very different offense than the one we saw this past game.
Yeah, and you know what? Back to me on that. That's really tough. Like, obviously, the two names that you mentioned, Matt Canada and Mason Rudolph. That's really what it's going to come down to if the Steelers are going to win this game. But let me go with one of the receivers because I think the three guys that get the most receiver snaps are going to be Chase Claypool, James Washington, and Ray McLeod. I'm going to go with James Washington because obviously those guys should have the most chemistry between any receiver that Mason Rudolph is throwing to in the Steelers team. But flat out, last year they weren't really on the same page.
No, it was Hodges and
Hodges and Washington had the better connection. So,
yeah,
who knows? Like, obviously, Ray and Chase aren't guys that have worked very much at all with Mason Rudolph outside of practice. So, James Washington might be the guy. I'm kind of suspecting Deontay and Juju are kind of guys that come in relief, don't play a ton of snaps. Like, they will play. But I think James Washington potentially is in line for a big game. So, kind of looking towards him to have a big one. That's why he's my X factor. So, Jeffrey, to top the show off, what is your score prediction?
It's Browns Steelers week. I'm not overanalyzing this game. The Steelers are going to win this one. They're going to win it 21-14. Find a way.
Rip the hearts out. Wow. Yeah. Oh, it's funny. I was going to pick the opposite team of who you picked. That was kind of my goal going into this. Oh, it's still so tough though. But Cleveland should win. I honestly think they will choke because they are the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield's their quarterback. I think they choke is what it comes down to. But if I had to pick a score, I'll stay on brand with the betting lines and say Vegas got it right. I'll say the Browns win at 21-10, and people will say the Browns only scored 21 points up against a defense that rested everyone. How did they manage that? But it's going to be one of those things where that's what should happen when you look at the matchup. That's what should happen. I still think the Browns will choke. They're the Browns until they don't choke.
Browns are going to find a way to Browns it up.
Exactly, and that's what I wrote about tomorrow. So make sure to check that out. But of course, Jeffrey, plug your stuff that's coming up.
Okay, I had a couple film rooms out already this week. Coming up is a Kevin Dotson film room. I've been covering a lot of stuff. Me with Dave Schofield, we've been talking about what changed. A bunch of different factors helped the Steelers' offense turn around, but the number one factor, in my opinion, that helped the Steelers turn around was the interior offensive line played much better, and Kevin Dotson was a big part of that. It's going to be a fun film room. If you like seeing offensive linemen throw defensive linemen into other defensive linemen, you'll want to look at that film room because it's great.
Yeah, no, that's one I'm definitely looking out for. Kevin Dotson, he had a hell of a game last week, so I'm excited to see what he can do again in another starter role. You know what? One last question, because this is something that's been bugging me. Come playoff time, say Matt Filer's back for wild card week. Do you play him at right tackle? I don't think you can take Dotson off the field. What happens there?
I think Chooks is still playing really good. To me, if Matt Filer comes back, he's your super sub. He can go in for anybody. He can go in any position. You cannot take Kevin Dotson off the field. And saying that doesn't mean that I don't live in the fear that the Steelers would take Kevin Dotson off the field and start Matt Filer. But no, they can't do that. Dotson he is so good. He's just absolutely so good. You cannot take him out.
Yeah, the Steelers 2020 draft class looks absolutely outstanding this year. It's exciting path to the future. But on that note, we will leave you off there. Make sure you're clicking over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Also, make sure you're listening to our entire family of podcasts. BTSC's coming out with hours and hours of stuff for you each and every day. So make sure you're checking all that stuff out. We got a great lineup of hosts. As we go out here, Snowman does say it best. He puts $2 in the tips jar. He says, Happy New Year, Steelers Nation. Stay safe. I will reiterate that for on behalf of my co-host, Jeffrey Benedict. Happy New Year. We're going to bring it to you wild card week, no matter what, in Rod Woodson jerseys. It's already been stated. So look out for that. Excited to talk to you guys next week, and excited to find out who the Steelers' opponent's going to be on Sunday. Thank you so much for tuning in.